have a 10-year-old daughter. Her name is Mia. She's our CEO junior. And when Mia was born, I've always had crazy jobs, travel around the world and speak. When she was 4, she said to me, I had a speaking gig, I was going somewhere, she said, "Mama, do people actually come and listen to you?" And I was like, well, it's a good question, because to her, I'm just her mama. I make sandwiches and stuff. So I started a tradition. Whenever I speak, I take a photo of people, and we have this whole gallery at home. So I'm going to put this down. You guys are going to look really, really happy and pretend like you really want to hear what I have to say. And we're going to take a photo. We're going to add it to the Mia gallery. Okay, ready? All right. I don't know. I'm going to get everyone in. But okay, can we look like really... to curse? Yeah. Okay. It's really hard for me. I did a TV interview the other day, and I forgot because it wasn't it was to tape. It wasn't live, but you're not allowed to curse on tape either. That's I learned my lesson. So Keith asked me to talk about chance, which I thought was awesome because it made me kind of think through my life, my career, happier, and realize that actually it is a lot about chance. So what I thought what I would do is share with you guys kind of how I think about chance and what it's meant for me personally. And hopefully in there are some lessons. Hopefully in there is a kick in the butt to take a chance. And then at the end, just so you know where we're going, there's a really, really secret mathematical equation, which you guys will see for the first time. This is a world premiere about chance. So just so you know, pay attention to the end. So let's start with chance. The first thing I think about chance, I think you should take some. So just starting out, and when I was thinking about what's a first chance I should talk about, for me, it would have to be 2. When I was 4, I decided I wanted to be a figure skater. Now, you have to remember I was in the Soviet Union, which used to be called the Soviet Union. It's now Russia. It keeps changing its name. I grew up in a city called Leningrad. It's now St. Petersburg. They just, you know, it's having jumpy identity. So I decided I wanted to be an Olympic figure skater. And in Russia, if you did an activity and you wanted to be on a track, you had to be either amazing or not. And if you were not, you were taken off the ice. And I had this, I was 4, and I had this performance with tryout, and I decided to take, I was supposed to do a double jump, a double Lutz. And I decided I was going to be so cool, and I was going to take a chance without telling my coach, telling my parents, telling anyone. I'm going to attempt a triple. Without practicing very much, without actually knowing how to do it, but I was going to do it in the tryout that was going to determine whether I get on this team or not. I flopped on my face. I mean, I fell. It was awful. And the coach was not a very nice person. She literally, as I was lying there, walked over to me and stood over me and said, "You're so out of here." And that was it. That was the end of my figure skating career. So that's a chance. There was no more. I tried to look for a photo. We weren't allowed to bring a lot of photos out of Russia, so no photos. Here's probably the second chance that kind of set me on a path I was in. So I grew up, as I mentioned, in the Soviet Union, and when I was 13 and a half, my parents and I left everything and escaped. So we were allowed 2 suitcases. I'll never forget it. 2 suitcases per person and $600, so $200 per person. This is us. I don't know if you guys can see. Oh, this is good that it's faded because you're not going to comment on my fashion sense because I'm wearing pleated pants. These clothes were donated in a pile. That's my excuse. We went to a refugee camp first in Austria where we were hiding in a red light district, which is really weird when you're 13 and you wake up and you take a nap and you wake up and there's a lot of prostitutes around. Just a weird thing. And then we went, for a few months we lived in refugee camps in Italy applying for permission to come here. We got really lucky, and after 2.5 months we got permission to enter the US, and we went to New York. We flew into New York. I kissed the ground, absolute cheese ball, and then we flew to Detroit, where we would live in a settlement, in a housing project for a year. I got to tell you guys, when you take a chance and you're coming to America, which is like, oh my God, and you land in a project in Detroit, it's a fucking letdown. It's like, what the? Yeah, the first words, I didn't speak English. The first words I learned in English were all about cocaine and the criminal code. I mean, no joke. I could tell you every offense. I was the only white kid in the school. It was, the point of this, it was really rough. It was a really, you know, I tell funny stories about it now. It was a really horrible time for me and my family. We lived on welfare and food stamps, and my parents had to learn English and find jobs. And we climbed out of it eventually. And the thing that I realized is, we took this chance. My parents took this chance. I just came along for the ride. None of it worked out exactly how we meant to, but it gave me this enormous chance to be here, which for me is the greatest chance I've ever had. And I'll fast forward to some fun chances I've had in my career, because when I talk to people about what I've done, there's a lot of questions like, wow, well, how'd you do that? How'd you do that? So I thought I'd tell you, fast forward from refugee camps through the Detroit projects, New York City, where I moved after college. At the ripe age of 24, I became a venture capitalist. Now, I don't know how many of you guys, do you guys know about venture capital? It's just like dark world, right? So first of all, there's no women there. Venture capital has less women than plumbing. It's less than 3% professional women if you don't count assistants and operational staff. I was 24 and I became a junior partner. And you'd think this happened because I'm like so smart and like I did something. No, it was all about a chance meeting. So the company I ended up working for is called Hudson Ventures. It's in New York. And I was starting a company. I was pitching a company to them. Now this was 2002. And I was pitching a company in the ebook space. There was like 2 ebooks in the world. And I had this brilliant idea with this friend of mine that we were going to do this interoperable software to help people go from one format to another. Well, there was literally like 2 ebooks, but you know, we were visionaries or just stupid. So we were pitching this company to this firm, and the senior partner literally leans over. And I said something like, oh, and you know, our publishing partners are 100% behind us, and one of them is like 150% like wants to make this happen. He leans over. This is a pitch, you know, so I'm like doing my best. It's all formal. He closes my laptop and he looks at me and says, Natalie, I don't understand how anyone can be more than 100% behind you. And I'm going like, fuck. I think this is like a cliche English. What's wrong with my English? Like, I'm freaking out. So I decided I could either cry, which is what I really want to do, or what I did, which is I said, Jay, his name is Jay Goldberg. I said, Jay, English is my second language. And I was taught Americans like cliches. So I thought this was a cliche I'm using, but I'll make you a deal. I will never use this cliche again if you invest in the company. Finally, he laughs. He cracks up. My co-founder, I thought, was like, you know, going to pass out. He's like, what the hell are you doing? We left the meeting. I get a phone call. It's Jay Goldberg, and he says, hey, kiddo, the company is not going to make it. There's really no market for your products. He was right. But I want to offer you a job. I want you to come and join us as a junior partner because you have a serious attitude and a spine, and no one really has ever stood up to me that way. To which I thought the wise thing to say was, well, I think you have an attitude problem, and I don't know about this venture capital thing, and I'm totally going to make this company work. That was the end of that phone call. 9 months later, we ran out of money, and I needed a job. So I called Jay Goldberg back, and I said, hey, Jay, can I have that job back? And he said, yeah. So that's how I became a venture capitalist. That's a chance, people. Which led me to another chance. And this is, I didn't make a slide for this, but I think if you take chances, one of the things that I've learned is you got to give chances. It kind of does work like that. You have to take some and then give some. And so I was a VC. You guys probably know this company, Constant Contact, Boston company. Everybody know Constant Contact? If you have a small business, I hope you're using them. So I was a VC for a really long time, like 3 months. I was so smart. I was so into the job. I didn't know anything. I was still learning. And this company comes in to pitch, and the CEO, Gail Goodman, comes in and pitches this way for small businesses to get online. And my partners, it was me, and I called them 4 geriatrics, because they were like 65 and super brilliant, but they were very geriatric. And they look at her, and they're like, oh, and this was, again, 2002. They were like, internet is over, online marketing is over. They invested in kind of enterprise software, and they were like, no. And they, by the time Constant Contact burned $30 million, you know, they hadn't made a lot of progress. They had 2,000 customers. I fell in love with Gail. I was like, wow, this woman can like walk through a brick wall and make a business. And also, small businesses are going to have to figure out how to market online. So I didn't know you needed a partner to negotiate a deal. So I went and negotiated this great deal. I spent time in Boston, you know, and then presented it to the partners to invest in. They looked at me. The first response was, what the fuck are you doing? Like, you can't go negotiate deals without a senior partner. Okay. Don't ask for permission. That's a big lesson. And the second thing, I kept going at them, and eventually they gave me, this is a quote, $1 million to invest and fail with. They said this in front of the CEO. They said, here's $1 million, which is not a lot of money. Go invest and learn your lesson. Constant Contact became the largest return for the fund. I was on the board for 5 years. It was not all happy at the beginning, but incredible success, incredible team. We took the company IPO. It is the single largest return for the venture fund. I took a chance on Gail, and the partners not knowing, but took a chance on me. So that was a big lesson for me, and you don't necessarily know when the chance is in front of you, but if you can give it to someone and work really hard, it'll pay back. Fast forwarding a little to, I try to think of, I think when I think of chance, I don't know about you guys, I think like, oh, well, if chance comes, you got to take it. Well, not all the time. So when I was a VC, set the stage, we're in New York, me and my husband were in our 20s, and I'm working like 20 hours a day. But I figured that's like way too much sleep still. So I was like, oh, cool, let's start a publishing company. That's not what you guys think when you're bored. The longest I was on jury duty, I was bored one day, and I said, wow, it'd be really cool to create a series of books written for and by college students, kind of peer learning. Today it'd be a mobile app. Back in the day, like books. So instead of like pitching this to a publisher as a line, my husband and I decided to start this out of our illegal sublet in New York while I was a partner at a venture capital firm and he had a full-time job. Because that's a smart thing to do. And so we created this company. It's called Students Helping Students. We recruited students from all over the country, published 11 books. We would do PR calls and pitches on lunch breaks. We got into the New York Times. A couple books became bestsellers. And then I became pregnant and realized that at some point I was going to have to be with the baby once the baby was born. So we decided to sell the publishing company, which we did. We sold it to a publishing house and they made it horrible. And the agent who sold it said to me, oh, you must have a book in you. Like, you've done all this crazy stuff. You must have a book in you. And I was like, all right. So I put together a proposal for this book for women to like be more gutsy. And she ended up selling it, which is crazy. Like, that's a whole other story. And the publisher was Hyperion, big publisher. I'd never written a book before. And they said to me, do you trust us to design the book, to really like take your thoughts and design the cover? And I said, sure. I'm taking a chance on you guys. So the book was, I poured my heart and soul into it. And it was called it's called The Daring Female's Guide to Ecstatic Living. It had 30 dares for women to do more with their lives. And I really was awesome advice, I thought, and I worked so hard on it. And then they sent me the cover. What the? It's sparkly too. You can't tell. It's sparkly, and when you touch it, it like comes off. I took a chance, okay? So not all chances, please. It is written under Natasha Kogan. Some of you are looking. Natasha is my original name. When we moved here at the border, they were like, you fill out papers from scratch. They were like, what's your name? And I was really smart. If you haven't figured this out, I was like, oh, I'm going to have a more American name, and that way I'll blend in more. Blend in without speaking English or anything. So I was like, oh, Nataly, but I spelled it with a Y. So I ended up with a name that everyone asked me why was so exotic to begin with. I was trying to blend in, so anyway. But yeah, this is the book. This was my 2 years of writing and work and hard work, and they sent me this. So the lesson I learned is not all chances are the chances you should take. The key with chance is you definitely got to take it when it matters, okay? And this is where we talk about happier a little bit. So, how many of you guys have read Delivering Happiness? Okay, more of you guys should read it. It's a book by Tony Hsieh, who founded Zappos. So, I was in a cafe here in Boston, Buttery. You guys been to the Buttery in South End? So I was there in the morning. I had a meeting, and then I see a book laying. I guess someone forgot it. Grabbed it, I started reading it. I ended up skimming through the whole thing. And I knew about Zappos and what he built, but I didn't realize that there was a whole piece of it that really was based on scientific research on happiness. And so it was a whole appendix in the book, and I'd read it. And it really stuck in my mind. And in parallel to this, and I won't go through this whole thing, but I was really, I'd had this really successful career. I'd built some companies. I was part of a lot of companies. I kept chasing happiness because I thought happiness is this awesome thing you get once you make enough money, achieve a lot of things, impress enough people. Sounds dumb, right? But like a lot of us actually think that way. I was really depressed. I was in a really, really bad place because that's actually not how you get happy. And I was exhausted and depressed. And so this book was interesting. That's why I picked it up. And I was searching for something. So the appendix of this book is all about the science of happiness. Okay, so I picked up some of it, put it down. I went to South by that year. And I'm walking around, and I see a bus. It says, Delivering Happiness. Same logo. I was like, all right, what is this? So I run to the bus. I don't know how to walk, really. I run in, and I go up the stairs, and there he is. This is Tony Hsieh, who's in the bus, And this guy was really scared of me because I walked into the bus and there he is, and he's a really introverted guy, and I was like, oh my God, I love your book, I love all the science, I love samples, oh my God, it's so exciting to meet you. And he was just like, kind of like that, exactly. I made him take a photo. And it was his bus, and he's kind of promoting this idea of bringing happiness to work. And so I had this really interesting conversation with him once he stopped being scared of me, just about where the science came from and why he was inspired by it. Well, this really stuck to me. And for the next 3 years, what I did was, in parallel to, I was running a division of a consumer company here, but in parallel, I dug into every piece of scientific research on happiness I could find. And it blew my mind, because what I learned is happiness isn't a prize we get after we do certain things. Like, it's not achievement, success, the right person, the right job, then happiness. It's, if you can be happier now, you will be more productive, more successful, you'll be better in your relationships. And then I learned about all these little things that science has shown make us happier, like expressing gratitude, like appreciating little things, not big things, like the fact you guys know that big events in our lives, like promotion or getting a new car or getting married, only have an effect of about 3 months, and then we go back to the baseline. But the little things build up and actually have imprint in your brain that they leave to become more positive. So I spent 3 years on the science, which led me to say, wow, I think it led me to two things. One is it changed my life. I mean, that's a whole separate talk, but it really, really changed my life. You know, by nature, 50% of our happiness is set point. It's determined by our genetics. And I always say, naturally, I'm not a very happy person. Like, I'm a tortured Russian Jewish immigrant, you know. When I wake up in the morning, it's kind of like... But the other 50% is what we can control, and that's what I learned through the science, and I started making all this part of my life. And so I personally became so passionate about it, but professionally, what I've always been interested in is how do we use technology to improve people's lives, right? And so I said, wow, I think there's this huge opportunity to create a company that uses the science as the inspiration, but that helps people learn and practice these tiny, small things that make them happier. So I saw a book on a table in the Buttery, and it led to starting a company. And here it is, and that's how Happier was born. And the thing to me, right, I took a chance, I took a crazy chance when I started Happier. But you don't know when the chance is there sometimes, right? When I picked up that book, I had no idea. So it is about, to me, the big thing I learned is if something is speaking to you, there's probably a reason. I was talking to someone before who said they were going through a difficult time, and they saw someone who suggested mindfulness and kind of meditation, and then they saw Happier launch, and they were like, wow, the universe is trying to tell me something. I'm not one of those people who says that a lot, but I think something is sometimes trying to tell us something, and those are the chances that pop up, and they're worth taking. I want to tell you guys a short story just about my co-founder. This is Colin. He's my co-founder at Happier. On paper, someone said we're the most unlikely couple. So I'm built up lots of companies before. I've had a long career. I'm nearing that really scary age. Next year, I turn 40. I never thought I'd turn 40. He's 25. When we met, he was 22. He dropped out of college because he wanted to start his first company. He'd built a mobile company in Hungary. And we didn't know each other. But Colin and I met because when I decided to start Happier, I made a list of the qualities I wanted in a co-founder, and I would start to tell every single person I met, I'm starting this company, do you know someone like this? And I had this list. And this one guy I was having dinner with said, you know what, actually, my friend Colin, you should meet him. He's exactly these things. And that's how Colin and I met, right? So a lot of people ask me, like, how do you find your co-founder? It was by chance, but the thing is, I made that chance happen because I was just such a blabbermouth about it. Here's the thing about chance. Sometimes you don't know when it matters, right? So I talked about Happier and how Happier was born, that you really got to take those chances that matter. But the thing is, most of the time, you don't know when it matters. I'll tell you guys this story. So I spoke 2 summers ago, Happier launched. And you know, for a consumer app, to get traction, you got to get PR and you got to get word of mouth, right? You can't pay for this stuff. So here we were, a tiny team, there were 6 of us at the time, and how do we get PR? So we were pitching, you know, ourselves, right? We can't afford a pro PR firm. We were pitching, we weren't going anywhere. I spoke at a Fortune event in Aspen. This was a few months after we launched, and it was, you know, just a short gig. It was a bunch of entrepreneurs. This guy comes up to me after, and no joke, here's what he said. I talked about Happier, and here's what he says. And he comes up to me, he's wearing a suit in Aspen. Everyone's wearing t-shirts. He comes up to me and he goes, you know, I think anything related to happiness is just bullshit. I think what you're doing is nuts. and I don't even know why they let you speak here. And that's what he says to me. So I have this rule. Any conversation I have could be the most important conversation of my life. So instead of telling this guy to fuck you, which is what I really wanted to do, because what the fuck? I was like, okay, well, let me talk to you about happiness. So for 2.5 hours, I stood there and I was out of breath because in Aspen's like really hard to breathe up there. And I told them all about the science and the inspiration and the thousands of emails we were getting from our users about how it's changing their life. And he kind of took notes. About 2/3 into the conversation, his suit jacket moves, and I see his placard, and it says New York Times. I wake up at 5 a.m. the next morning because our servers are down, because he wrote an article about Happier, published it in the New York Times. It's a pretty positive article. It was the largest surge of traffic we ever had. It gave us our initial base of users. I took a chance, and he took a chance, right? That meeting was completely by chance, and there was every reason to say this chance is not going to matter. This guy hated happiness, but I took it, and then he took a chance on me, and this really set us up on our initial growth path and was huge. I'll tell you guys another story. I know there's a lot of designers in the room. So this was our first version of Happier that we launched, and Happier is our first product is a mobile app that helps you collect and share small positive moments. So I don't have a clicker here, but this was the first version, and the model was, it's all about friends. It was all sharing moments. It was a bi-directional design model, so you have to friend each other. So it was more like Facebook than it is like Twitter. So we launched this, and we were convinced that people were just going to want to share these things with their close friends and family. We were talking, and I had a designer with me, Sarah, and we were just brainstorming one night, and we were like, well, what if we add something where you could just share it with everyone on Happier? Let's give it a shot. You guys see that little Discover rocket? So this Discover, you had an option to share your happy moment to everybody in Happier, and then you could go to Discover and see them. How many of you guys build software or build apps for consumers? Okay. When something works, you know it's working? So we woke up, literally, Apple released this the next morning. 90% of all moments were now public. And the Discover tab was exploding, right? So we were moderating it. So the entire team the next day, there were 6 of us, all we did was just approve these posts that were going to everybody. It was a small design chance that we took, right? And what we learned was that no, people actually want to share these with everybody, not just their friends. And this is Happier Today. Happier Today, it's a little hard to see, but community is the default, right? So a small design decision, a small chance design decision that we just gave a shot, actually determined and let us discover this entire opportunity that we didn't see. We didn't know this was a chance that was going to matter, but it did. All right. I definitely have talked for more than 20 minutes, so it's time for the secret math equation. So I got to tell you guys, so I have some credibility here, I was a math whiz in Russia. So in Russia, math is like a national sport. My father is also a mathematician. So when I was 8, I was so cool. On Saturdays, I would compete in math Olympiads. This is when you all nod to tell me that I was so cool. I know you're jealous. I know you're jealous. I know you're jealous. So I have some credibility to talk about math. So I thought I would, this is a worldwide premiere of my equation about chance. So here it is. First component is a bajillion of effort. And a bajillion is a very specific measure, you guys. You're laughing, but it's a mathematical measure. Bajillion is a lot. It's more than a billion with a B. And to me, a big component of bajillion, there's a lot of blood, sweat, and tears in bajillion. I was trying to think of how to get an S in there, but couldn't. Times the chances you take, right? This is really, in all seriousness, there's chances every day, right? So as much effort as you put in, if you don't take some chances, I don't think you can get very far. And I think if you take bajillion of effort and multiply it by chances you take, you get ultimate life success, fortune, and eternal happiness. No, I'm just fucking kidding. No way. I think you get this. I think you get avoiding the state of woulda, coulda, shoulda, which to me is the most important thing that I've learned. And this is, to me, the biggest driving force that I have every day. People talk about, when you're on your deathbed, you don't want to look back and say, I should have this, I would have this. That's cool, but it's not about on the deathbed. It's about right now. Today, I don't want to feel like I would have, or I could have, or I should have tried this company, I should have tried this. I never want to feel that. This, to me, is the scariest state. So I think if you take a bajillion of effort and multiply it by the chances you take, You get to avoid the state of woulda, coulda, shoulda. And I think that's kind of awesome. So I'll leave you guys with this. I made up this motto for myself. Actually, I don't remember. I think it was back in Russia, and I was trying to think what it would sound like in Russian. But this is kind of my life motto. Life is short. Collect experiences. And I think for today, maybe I'll modify it to life is short. Take chances. Collect experiences. I want to ask you guys something. So I always say to my team, we try not to have a lot of meetings, but we have a weekly team meeting, and at the end of the team meeting, there's someone, not just necessarily me, I say, okay, someone have an ask for the team to do something that's not related to what we're doing at work. So today, for the moment, you guys are my team. So I'm going to ask you something. I want you to take a chance today, and I want you to tweet it at me, email it to me, tweet it to everybody else. Keith asked you to tweet it too. Holy shit. But I want you to take a little chance today, and I'd love to know about it. And I think if you guys tweet it to me or email it to me, I'm Nataly at Happy. I'm really easy to find. We'll do something cool with it. We'll do our little equation with it. But that's my ask for you guys today. And most of all, thank you for taking a chance on me. It's 30 minutes of your morning. I hope it was worth it. Thank you so much.